We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody out there. Good evening, Dr. Jared Johnson. How are you doing on this? I've seen this pop up a lot. This is the most Monday feeling Friday I think I've ever experienced in my life. It feels like a Monday, right?
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, it's nothing like Friday, that's for sure. But it's a chaotic Friday.
I mean, you come right out of the little the holiday break here, and you get into Friday. Transfer portal opens up, and it's just there's all kinds of shit happening throughout the day, and I think people are trying to do their best to keep up with it. But look, we knew that this was going to be the situation, obviously, with with what's gone on this season and with the Sharon Moore thing and, bringing in a new coaching staff. There's a lot of turnover on the coaching staff. There's going to be a lot of turnover on the roster. Some guys are going to enter the portal and they're going to stay gone. Some guys are going to go in the portal, test the market, possibly find their way back to Michigan. But this is what it's going to be like for the next handful of days as Kyle Whittingham tries to navigate this new world as head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. And Jared, before we went live, you and I were talking a lot about, before we get in, I guess, to the details of what's happening. It's just, it's a crazy place to be with the transfer portal. And when you look at what's happening with the roster and some of these pieces that you're excited about and trying to see, like an Elijah Dotson or a Cole Sullivan, when you see guys like that entering the portal, potentially a guy like Andrew Marsh, although nothing's been confirmed, to really test the market, man, it's as a head coach in today's college football, to have to do this every single year. You go into this portal time, and there's 2 weeks where it opens up, and you don't know who's going to stay, who's going to go, who's testing the market, who's going to come back and ask for more money. And you got to do it every single year. I just feel like this is, I said it before we went live, Jared, to me, it feels unsustainable. I just don't know how you can continue to do this year after year. But I mean, I don't know, thoughts on the early chaos? No, I'm with you. It's exhausting. And I can't imagine, like you've talked in the past, I can't imagine being a young fan right now, right? Like being when college football was magical when I was like 8 years old, you know what I mean? And these kids came and you watched them for 3-4 years. Like there's none of that anymore. These kids can't even buy a damn jersey, right? Everything's got to be throwback because you don't know where the hell the guy's going to be at. You need to get jerseys where like the numbers are detached. I mean, even Andrew Marsh switched his jersey during the season. So it's got to be like blank jersey where you can just peel off the number, peel off the nameplate, and you can make your own. I mean, that's really where we're at because you never know from year to year.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, I collect things. I collect jerseys and autographs, and I've seen a couple Underwood, jerseys that look pretty nice, but I'm like, dude, I'm not going to do it because, you know what I'm saying? I'll put it up on the wall, and next thing you know, he's at LSU, and then I got this damn jersey, so. I'm with you. I don't think it's sustainable. I think it's chaotic. It's got to be stressful for the coaches. It sucks for the fans. And I think they got to change. And I think these kids got to start signing contracts with buyouts or something different has to change. This is crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And I've done, shout out to Blue Wolverine from the YouTube page, said annual free agency is wild. I appreciate the donation there. Yeah, I 100% agree. It's just, I think it's why you've seen some coaches step away from the game. And I think it's why, there's a lot of people that just question from, the schedule. Nick Saban's talked about it a lot. Like the way that things are currently done with the current college football schedule just doesn't make sense. There's just a lot of chaos. There's a lot of uncertainty. And I can't imagine that coaching college football today is anywhere near as easy as it used to be 20 years ago when you knew who you had coming back. There were young guys on the roster that you could get excited about, that you knew, hey, in 2 or 3 years, this guy's going to be a stud, or we've got this young quarterback in the system who's working his way through, and by year 2 or year 3 he's going to be the starter. Well, in today's college football, if you've got a young stud quarterback on your roster, if you're not playing him, there's a chance you're going to lose them. And so that longevity is really going away, and it's more so, it's constant free agency, and it's building your roster through the transfer portal. I think one of the examples that you're seeing of that right now being done successfully is with Curt Cignetti at Indiana, which, by the way, this weekend was a little bit nuts. Jared, you and I were texting. You've got Curt Cignetti leading number 1 Indiana over Alabama in the Rose Bowl, beating the shit out of the Crimson Tide. And then right after that, Ferris State transfer, Trinidad Chambliss leading Ole Miss to a win over Georgia. So you've got number 1 Indiana, 1 win away from playing for a national championship. And you've got a Ferris State transfer quarterback, 1 win away for playing
from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
For playing for a national championship. It's just, we are in a different place in this sport. And I think that there's some things that I like about it, but there's other things that I definitely don't. And I think when you see a day like today, I've got the list up on the screen here for anybody who's going to be listening after the fact. But, we knew Jayshon Barham, Derek Moore, Gio El-Hadi declared for the NFL. Today we heard Marlon Klein declaring for the NFL. Jared, this is something that you and I have talked about. Overall thoughts on Marlon Klein saying, hey, thanks for the memories, but I'm headed off to the league.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do himself any favors, but you made a good point when we were texting earlier. He's one of those freak athletes, so he could go to the combine, put up some impressive numbers, and kind of get drafted. I don't think he's going to be drafted super high, but it's kind of like how Donovan didn't get drafted, but he put up great numbers in the combine, and people started saying, well, maybe it wasn't him at Michigan that wasn't getting the yards. But I guess I wish he would have came back. He didn't impress me this year, but you don't get guys like that on your team too often. And maybe, like you and I said, maybe it was partially some of the coaching he was or was not getting, while he was there.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think that for sure we know that coaching was not a strong point on this
little sidetracked
for the staff this year. And again, it's unfortunate because some of the guys, I think, and I mentioned this on social media, but some of the guys in their individual positions, I think were doing the best they could with what they had to work with. But ultimately, I think coaching really failed this roster. And I think that's partially why you're going to see, some attrition here during the offseason, maybe more than you normally would, because some guys probably feel a little bit shortchanged. Some guys are unsure about the staff coming in, and some guys, for better or worse, this is a business now. College football is a business for the players, and these guys are going to make business decisions. And that's what you're seeing here. But yeah, with Marlon Klein, I think, selfishly, I thought, come back. You need another year. When game 1, it looked like Marlon Klein was I can't remember exactly what his numbers were, but in that first game of the season, it was okay, Marlon Klein is ready to fill that void left by Colston Loveland. And then as the season progressed, real quickly, Marlon Klein sort of disappeared, and it was where is this guy? He was on Bruce Feldman's freak list 2 years in a row. It just seemed like he was ready to take that next big step. I'm sure some of it is you have a young, inexperienced quarterback who's trying to figure out his way through the offense.
Oh, yeah.
Probably offensive scheme wasn't doing you any favors either. And like I said, we talked about the coaching staff and that being an issue. For me, yes, selfishly, Marlon Klein coming back would have been a good thing. But at the end of the day, athletically, I think that when he tests through the combine, the coaches that go in there and the analysts that see this guy moving around, they're going to see him fitting in their offense somehow or another. And I don't really have a doubt that when he gets on an NFL roster, because he is going to get drafted. There's no question about that. He's going to get drafted. Right. And kind of like an AJ Barner type guy where out in Seattle, all of a sudden he's becoming like a dude. He was good at Michigan. But I could see Marlon Klein going the same direction where he becomes a dude somewhere in the NFL because he's built that way. And if he gets around the right staff and the right team, I think he could flourish. And I think one of the downsides is if he comes back, he's coming back for his final year with a new head coach, new position coach, and a new offense. And I don't think that's going to do him any favors either. And so I don't knock him for making the move. And then on that list as well, Dominic Zavada going pro, which we know about. Dominic Zavada, you talk about a bit of a fall off from where it was last year, returning All-American kicker to where it was this year, just very inconsistent. It seemed very out of character for him. Hope he gets back on track, but that was a struggle. But let's get into some of the portal things here. And look, since we've been on, there's a chance that 2-3 more guys may have the portal. That's how this has gone all day. But the current list that I have in front of me is defensive back Zeke Berry in the transfer portal. Jaden Mangum out of actually the transfer from Michigan State, came to Michigan. He was here for 2 seasons before he transferred out. You got Davis Warren at quarterback, Jaden Davis at quarterback, Samaj Morgan at wide receiver, Frederick Moore at wide receiver. That happened earlier in the year. Jasper Parker at running back, Cole Sullivan at linebacker, Elijah Dotson at cornerback, Connor Jones on the offensive line, Caden Strayhorn on the offensive line, and Devin Baxter, edge rusher, sophomore edge rusher. Jared, when you look at that list so far of the outgoing transfers, I mean, who really sticks out? What were some of the biggest surprises for you?
I mean, I see one starter, right? Cole Sullivan. I don't see anybody else that, nothing against these young men. I'm sure they're all very talented. We followed them all since they were in high school. And, Zeke Berry had some good games, but he also got beat a lot. I see one starter, and I think Cole Sullivan actually is just shopping himself to try to get a better deal with Michigan personally. He seems like a team guy, like a very bought-in type dude. And I think he's just saying, hey, I'm going to be a starter. I made impact on this defense this year, so maybe I need to get a little bit different. Because I imagine he's not getting a huge NIL deal. I don't see him on a lot of social media. I don't see him on a lot of advertising. But now, he's saying, "Hey, I'm going to be the starter on this defense. Might be the captain of this defense. Who knows? But I need I need to relook at my. You said it's a business, and it's a business. But everybody else, I don't see them making a huge impact. And I see a couple guys you and I talked about, right? So Utah has a couple cornerbacks. BYU has, so I see a couple guys might, like you said earlier. I think when we were talking that, hey, maybe they just see the writing on the wall that I'm not going to stay and compete for my job. So I don't see anything big. I think Michigan's poised to win the portal. The portal 2 weeks here. I think the head coach has made a splash. He's got some people that are good recruiters, and I think if that's what we're losing so far, I'm not overly concerned.
Same.
Now,
I mean,
Bryce might be in the portal right now.
Well, let's not alarm people here. But so yes, when I look at the list, I think I'm in agreement with you. I don't really see anything. I mean, I think because so many of them are popping up that it's easy as a fan to look at it throughout the day and be like, holy shit, the sky is falling. The wheels are coming off. Everybody's leaving. But when you look at this roster, when you look at the names on this list, I mean, a lot of it makes sense. Zeke Berry obviously played a lot of football at the University of Michigan. But again, this is not personal. Since we're talking business, right, and guys are making business decisions, I think, Jared, for guys like us, we should also approach it the same way. To me, Zeke Berry is a guy who's very replaceable on the roster, and I think that Kyle Whittingham can make that replacement by bringing some guys over from Utah. But when you go down the list, Davis Warren, Jaden Davis, Samaj Morgan, Frederick Moore, Jasper Parker, we've talked a number of times about how deep that Michigan running back room is going to be. It seems like a good move for Jasper Parker because you can see the writing on the wall there. Elijah Dotson is one that kind of raised eyebrows for me. It seemed like he was a young and up-and-comer guy that was going to be, pretty in the rotation comfortably, I would say, next year. I think the one that sticks out to me, and I think it's the one that sticks out to everybody, is Cole Sullivan. And I think you make a good point that I don't know what they were offering him or getting him from an NIL standpoint, but I know this, whatever it is, it probably isn't as much as he could earn elsewhere. And so I think it's a good idea to go in and test the market and see what people are willing to pay, because he's one of those guys where I think he might embody what Jim Harbaugh wanted NIL to be, where he came to Michigan, right? Not a high profile type guy. And he made a name for himself by what he was doing on the football field. And now he's starting to earn it. And so I think he's going to go test the market. He's going to see what Michigan wants to do. And he's also a guy who's trying to figure out who's going to be my position coach, right? He lost his position coach, or presumably is going to lose his position coach. I'm not exactly sure on that. But there's some uncertainty there. So yeah, overall, when you look at this list, it looks like a lot of guys. That's a shit ton of guys for day one of the transfer portal being open. But when you go through it name by name, it's really hard to be upset about any of these. I hope that Michigan does what it needs to do to get Cole Sullivan back. But some of these other guys, I think, it probably makes sense to move on. And I think part of that is because Kyle Whittingham might know what he's going to do. You've seen some guys over at Utah enter the transfer portal today as well. And these are guys that have played a lot of football, especially in the secondary, that it seems like they can come over and make a big impact immediately.
Yeah, I just looked. So Cole Sullivan's NIL valuation going into this year was 28 grand. So no way in hell he's going to come back and potentially be the starting linebacker at Michigan for 28 grand. So he's certainly
is that on three's evaluation?
Yeah. Which was good. I mean, he was a non-starter. He was a low star guy.
That's like a Kia. That's a Kia. It's a brand new Kia.
You own a Kia, don't you?
Listen, don't be putting my business out in the streets like that.
Okay, whatever.
It's a nice looking Kia. Okay, it's a nice.
You own a Kia.
It's a sporty Kia.
Yes. He's playing a whole year to get a Kia. So look at you now, dude. And you kind of on the come up, man.
I am on the come up. Maybe I should offer him my Kia to try to keep him.
Go in the portal, transfer for your vehicle. I don't know.
It's got low mileage. It's already tinted. Yeah, man. I think it's good perspective here. I've seen it in the comments that when you look at this list, the only one to really be upset about is Cole Sullivan. And I think that there's a high level of confidence that you can get him back. So even though it's a lot of names, there's only one name on there where you're like, God, I don't want to lose that guy. I want to get him back. Now, in saying that, these aren't the last guys to enter the portal. You're going to see more names in the coming days from Michigan that are going to test the market. And look, there's rumors out there about who is going to do that. And some of these guys are probably going to be bigger names than what you're used to. From what I've read, you might hear some guys who played significant reps on the offensive line testing the market. And then obviously one of the names floating around out there is Andrew Marsh, as a guy who might test the market and just see, what's available out there. I think that he probably would prefer to stay at Michigan. But again, this is a guy who, committed here under a certain staff with a position coach, and none of those guys are here. And so you're going to take a step back. You're going to make a business decision. You're going to test the waters. You're going to see what's available to you. And if staying at Michigan is the best bet, then I think that they'll make that decision. But it's going to be like this for a couple of days as we sort of sort this out. And that goes back to the conversation we were having before, where it's just, I don't know how you do this every year where you have, I was listening to the radio earlier, like Michigan State's going to have to bring in like 60 guys to fill out their roster from the portal. Wild. I just don't understand how you can function like that as a program from year to year. And it stands to reason that something's going to have to be done. Jared, I agree with you, whether it's through contracts or whatever it is. I just don't think you can go every single year wondering if your top guys are going to be returning, wondering if those young guys you've been developing are going to be back. You have no idea what you're working with from year to year. And it just seems like a recipe for disaster. Yeah.
And I think, some of the fans are making comments here. M. Goboski on YouTube.
Let's see it.
He says it's at 547. He said if Bryce stays, everyone that matters stays. And I think that's a big deal, right? Bryce is the leader of that team now going into next year, right? And I think that if he does stay, I think Marsh stays. I think a lot of guys stay. To your point, the offensive linemen, some of those guys might be looking, because don't forget you got Babalola coming up next year. That's probably going to snag a starting spot. You know what I mean? They were rumored to get one this year as a freshman. So as long as he can come back from that injury, he's probably going to get a spot on the line. So like you said, some of these guys might just say, hey, these guys all played camps and shit together too, right? So the linemen are going to call their buddies that are linemen and say, hey, what are they giving you over here at Texas? Oh, well, I'm getting 150 grand. Well, I'm getting 28. I'm getting a Kia. I need to upgrade. You know what I mean? So these kids are talking. These agents are here in Ann Arbor. Yeah, I work at McDonald's basically.
Yeah, no, it's worse than that. Yeah, I think that's fair. And we talked about the whole Bryce Underwood thing, and just the, not just Underwood, but with other guys on this roster as well, that there's an opportunity. You go back to that 2021 season, and I mentioned this before, heading into 2021, after 2020, there was a player only meeting in the building at Schembechler Hall, and guys like Josh Ross and Aiden Hutchinson were leading that meeting, and they really set the standard and said, hey, we're going to raise the level of expectation, not because coaches are asking us, because we as men are going to demand more of ourselves. And that was really the foundation of what set Michigan on that championship trajectory, that there were a collection of guys in the building who said, we want more out of this program. We want more out of ourselves. And I think that when you take into account everything that's happened with Sharon Moore and all the uncertainty and all that stuff, yes, it opened up a huge void and a lot of uncertainty. But I think within that, if you've got true leaders in the building or guys who want to be that, who want to step into that role, there's a golden opportunity in that building to do it. And I think certainly somebody like Bryce Underwood can be that if he wants to be that. I'm sure it's hard as a young kid, 18 years old, trying to step into that role. But, for better or worse this season, you were the guy on offense. And I think there's a lot of people that are going to be looking at number 19 and trying to figure out what he's going to do. And I think M. Goboski makes a good point that if somebody like Bryce Underwood calls everybody together and says, hey, I'm locked in. I'm locked in. I want to win a championship here. I think that kind of message can go a long way for some other players in the locker room as well. But I don't doubt that they've got that to a certain extent. I think Jordan Marshall is probably one of those guys. He's been very vocal and open about, his love for the University of Michigan. Obviously, retaining Tony Elford was huge for Kyle Whittingham, and being able to keep guys like Jordan Marshall in the building and bring in Savion Hyder. So they've got leaders in the building, but I think you could always use a little bit more. And it's just going to be interesting to hear who were those guys, who on the team, who were the guys that came in and said, look, we need to lock in. We need to make sure that that we get this program back to where it needs to be. Also from the YouTube page, we've got Mr. Raymond 236 from the YouTube page. He says, do you think some of these guys are testing the market at the advice of their agents as opposed to maybe how they actually feel? No, I think they're open to it. I do think they're being advised by agents, and I think that's probably why they're testing the market. I don't think there's a situation where there's a player saying, no, I want to stay at Michigan, and the agent saying, no, you need to go and test the market. And so they're doing it against their will, sort of thing. I don't think.
No, I think what he's saying is like a guy like Cole. Like, we get the vibe that Cole really wants to stay, but he's testing the market because his agent's saying, listen.
Well, where is that vibe coming from, though? Like, I feel that vibe, but
because he immediately said, when he released it, he said, but I'm not closing the door on Michigan. And most of the time, guys that do that, if you follow the transfer, the guys who say that, they usually come back, right? Like the Proctor that went to Iowa for a minute or whatever, and then went back to Bama or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, these guys that say, I'm open to coming back, they're literally saying, open your checkbook and let's renegotiate, right? Like, the one guy, I think I shared it with you, I can't remember what school he is, but he scheduled a visit to his own school. He's in the portal and scheduled 4 visits, and one of them is his own damn school. Like, what are we doing, bro?
There was a graphic that came out of all the schools he was visiting, and one of the schools was the school he's already enrolled at. And then you have the guys who are like, oh, they've re-signed for another year. It's like, what do you mean they've re-signed for another year? You mean they're staying in school? Okay, cool. They're coming back. So,
hey, if they actually had to sign, we might solve the problem. That's what I'm telling you.
Well, there you go.
We got to do contracts now. I mean, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I think when you and I were, covering Texas Tech for a little bit there, involved with them, that I think that they were starting to talk about doing that, right? Their general manager was like, these guys are going to start signing something because
Joey McGuire was pushing.
McGuire and the I can't remember the GM's name, but yeah, they were like,
Blanchard.
Yeah. If we're giving you millions of dollars with no contract, where the hell is it? Like, NIL went from college sports was ripping these kids off to the other extreme, where now the kids have all this money and no contracts. They can like, I'm leaving. So
and you can use all that money as leverage for somewhere else too, right? If you're going to go out and shop around and another school wants you bad enough, it's like, well, I'm getting $12 million at Michigan and I'm not leaving unless I get that. And so it gives schools another incentive. It gives them a number to work off of, and without any sort of contract or obligation in place. And I'm not going to pretend that I know the details of these things, but I don't think there's anything. I mean, I know there's nothing preventing these kids from leaving if they want to leave. I don't know how that works, what the deal is with Larry Ellison and all that shit. I'm not exactly sure how that works on the back end, but yeah, I mean, there's no question that agents are looking out for their players, right? They're looking out for their guys. And if you look at a guy like Cole Sullivan, let's just say, and I don't buy into the on-3 bullshit, the valuation thing, but let's just say the valuation for Cole Sullivan is at $28,000. Yeah, if you're Cole Sullivan and you're getting anywhere near that at Michigan, you probably hop in the portal and you see, okay, what else can I do? Because you're also looking at other guys that are driving BMWs and got big chains around their necks that aren't contributing near what you're contributing on the field. Yeah. And so at that point, it does become about money, and that's a whole separate conversation that you and I, we went down before the live, where, when you're young and you got all that money and you're looking at some of these, you're looking at a Kurt Signetti and the guys that transferred in from JMU that went to Indiana, and Indiana has now become a power. And you're looking at a Trinidad Chambliss who comes from Ferris State. Like, these guys that come from these lower level programs, and they're hungry, man. They're hungry for an opportunity. They're hungry to make a name for themselves, versus guys who, have been the guy all through high school, and then they get to college and they're the guy at a Power 4 school and they're getting all the money. Like, you wonder what that does to the drive and ambition of some of these players, and really how hungry they are to get better and do the things they need to do to be successful. I guess that's a really long-winded response to this comment or question here, but there's no question that agents are suggesting that their players go and test the market. And I think Cole Sullivan's probably a good example of that. Let me see here if we want to get to a couple more before we get into I saw this comment come up from the Facebook page from Noah Knight. He says, any of these players who are testing the waters can go elsewhere. Kyle Whittingham doesn't need a bought team. Here's the thing, Noah. He does, unfortunately. Every coach needs a bought and paid for team in today's era in college football. The days of, I don't want to say doing it the right way and doing it with integrity, but the days of not buying a roster are completely over. I mean, if you're the head coach at the University of Michigan, if you're the head coach at most Power 4 programs, let's just say, especially if you're a blue blood, you better be prepared to spend $20 to $30 million on your roster. That's just what it takes now to be competitive in today's college football. So, yeah, I mean, these guys that are going out and testing the waters, I think that I don't have any ill will towards them. If they don't feel like they're getting what they deserve at Michigan based on what their production is, I certainly don't see any issue with it. But yeah, at the end of the day, unfortunately, Noah, and it doesn't mean I have to like it, but that's 100% where we are is yes, Kyle Whittingham needs a bought team. Everybody, if you want to compete for a national championship, you need a bought team. You need about $20, $30 million in NIL if you want to be legitimately competitive.
Yeah, everybody gets paid. I don't know what that's a ludicrous take there.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Let's go into this because I could take more of these comments and questions, and then
are we even going to talk about the game, or they play the bowl game?
Do you want to talk about Texas? Do the fans out there want to talk about Texas? I'm not up to speed on all the latest.
Art Manning called out, and he's going to be tough as hell next year. And Smart came back, and Bryce threw some terrible passes. And anyways, yeah, that's
about it. Yeah, no, listen. We don't have to spend a lot of time.
For a minute. They look good for a minute.
We don't got to spend a lot of time on the Texas game, but I guess there were two different things that happened. The first part of the game, especially in the first half, like they weren't playing perfect. They were making mistakes, but I love the way that they were competing. And at one point in the second half, when the pads were cracking and, it just looked like the intensity was turned up, it was like, okay, Michigan's clearly a poorly coached team. They're not playing perfect, but these guys are playing hard. These guys are competing. And that I love to see. And then when the wheels started to come off, when it went bad, it got real bad real quick. And I think that that's also a sign of a poorly coached team when you can't just bring people back together. And we talked about it. Bryce Underwood made, some really costly mistakes in that game. Defensively, I think Wink Martindale, there were a lot of people that looked at Wink in that defense and said, hey, thanks for everything you did here for a couple of years, but we're ready to move in another direction. I did see a lot of people were pissed off that Wink Martindale was not wearing any Michigan branded gear on the sideline. Did you have any issue with it? I didn't know
you about it. I texted you about it.
Yeah, I thought you said the hat. I didn't realize he wasn't wearing anything in Michigan.
He wasn't wearing anything, and then he was wearing a branded hat for a different company. Like, that's not professional at all. I'm sorry, man. You gotta have some kind of standards here. Like we're still Michigan. You're still a coach. You're still getting paid, and you're just representing your own brand on the sideline. I don't believe that that's something that you can do.
Yeah, I think that
it looks like you weren't even involved.
Kind of rubs me the wrong way for sure. I think
Lamar Morgan wore a different shirt too. I believe he wore.
Did he really?
Nothing religious, but he wore a shirt that said Jesus won.
Okay.
Like a sweatshirt. Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody says Wink was going commando.
Yeah.
But defensively, obviously it didn't look good. Gave up some big plays. Arch Manning, I knew he could run. I didn't know he was that fast. I'd never viewed Arch Manning as a true dual threat quarterback. And if he isn't, Michigan's defense certainly made him look like he was. But yeah, he got an early start to his Heisman campaign next year. Obviously, and as it often is, most of the focus and honestly, a lot of the criticism went to the offense. And I was surprised. At how many Michigan fans, and I could even see some of it in the comments here, we're taking aim at Bryce Underwood and, suggesting that maybe it might be time to look elsewhere, that Bryce Underwood isn't the guy. I made my thoughts on this pretty clear on social media, but we can chat about it a little bit here. Jared, when you look at, not just Bryce Underwood's production and play against Texas, but when you square that up with now an entire body of work as a true freshman, I mean, where do you stand on number 19? Where do you stand on whether or not he should be the guy moving forward? You can see it right here. Like, the last 3 comments, Underwood is the guy. And then right below that, he's not the guy. He's only 18 years old. We got to make a change. Like, stop catering to Bryce Underthrow. Now he's got a nickname. I mean, where do you stand on Bryce Underwood here?
I mean, he's a true freshman, threw for almost 2,500 yards, rushed for 400, threw for 11 touchdowns, rushed for 6. I mean, he had the 9 picks, which, I mean, he threw 3 that last game, right? 2 or 3, yeah. So, I mean, bad
3.
game there, 3, yeah. So a third of them came in one game. But he completed 60% of his passes. You and I were talking about it. Dante Moore, his freshman year, obviously, like you mentioned, he had competed and he didn't get to start game 1 like Bryce did, and he threw 100 less pass attempts. But he had 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns, 9 picks. Threw for 53% completion. Look at Dante Moore now. Like I, no matter what you guys think, it's not Bryce Underwood's fault that all these football people come out and said, "Oh my gosh, he's the next thing. He's a god," right? And how many times are these experts wrong on people, right? But he came out and put up numbers, though. I'm saying you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't expect him to just be. Arch Manning did the same thing, right? He couldn't even win the starting job, and he was a god coming out of high school. He was a god this year. Didn't perform. Like,
surrounded by Mannings, by the way. I mean, you talk about quarterback development. Arch Manning is getting it. Yeah.
They don't get much better.
I think that's fair. I mean, obviously there was a ton of media hype surrounding Bryce Underwood, as just given where he was at as a high school recruit, talking about the LSU flip to Michigan, the NIL money, like all of this hype building up, generational talent, generational this, generational that. But part of it, Jared, is, and you don't necessarily hate him for it because you want a quarterback who's confident, but he didn't necessarily shy away from that hype either. He fed into it. The comment, I think was it spring ball or was it fall camp, where he said something like, they've never seen a true freshman like me. Like, to me, his performance this year was very true freshman. It was almost like the definition of true freshman. So I think we've seen that quite a bit from true freshman quarterbacks. But again, I don't knock him for it. I like the confidence. You want your quarterback to be confident. Overall, I agree with you. I think, and I said this on social media, that when you go from playing quarterback at Belleville and you're facing Pioneer's defense and you're facing Howell's defense, and in the course of a year, you go from Pioneer and Howell to Oklahoma, Texas, and Ohio State, like, that's a big jump to make in a single year, even when you have an elite coaching staff around you, even when you have all of the right development around you. That's still a tough jump to make in a single year. But when you factor in that he didn't have elite development around him, you had Sharon Moore at the end of the regular season talking about, like, I think we're going to get a quarterback coach in here. It's like, yes, of course. Why wasn't that priority number 1 the second you signed Bryce Underwood? So those things, I think, line up with the fact that Underwood expressed concern prior to committing to Michigan about lack of quarterback development at Michigan. And I think this season really didn't do anything to disprove that. And so when you look at his performance from week 1 to his performance against Texas, I don't think there's any debate that Bryce Underwood didn't make the progress that we all expected him to make, even as a true freshman. You can see that the raw talent is there. And when you play at Belleville and you're facing Pioneer, you can win a lot of games on raw talent. You can dominate on raw talent. You can't do it at the D1 level at the University of Michigan against Ohio State. Raw talent's only going to take you so far. But everybody on that football field is now elite raw talent. That's where coaching really makes the difference. And so I just think it's very premature to all of a sudden write Bryce Underwood off after a true freshman season when we know that the coaching staff failed him. And when we know that, for the most part, true freshman quarterbacks normally sit a year for this reason, because that jump from high school to D1 Power 4 football is astronomical. I mean, anybody that's ever gone and watched a high school football game and then you go watch Michigan, Ohio State, it's almost like you're watching a different sport. So to ask a young 18-year-old to make that leap and then, to live up to the lofty expectations and the hype that everybody put on him, I just think is unrealistic. At the same time, Bryce Underwood has to be better. He has to get better.
He will.
So if we're having this same conversation about him midway through next season, then I think there's a real conversation to be had if we don't really see like a massive leap in development. But I think, Jared, after what we saw this year, you at least got to get a competent coaching staff around him, a quarterback coach that can work with him, and then see what can happen in one solid offseason to that. To me, anybody calling for some sort of replacement right now just feels very premature.
Yeah, and there's a couple, like, now you're looking back on this season and knowing what Sharon was doing instead of coaching. There's a couple things that he said. One, he said online, he made a couple comments a couple times that he sometimes had to call Bryce and tell him to leave the facility. Well, first of all, if your player is working harder than you because you're not there and you're calling him, telling him to leave, like, you're getting outworked by an 18-year-old kid and you're the head coach. Second, that first game, you and I were sitting at the press conference, remember? And they asked Bryce, what grade do you give yourself, right? And he said like a C+ or something.
Yeah. Yep.
And what did Sharon do? He shook his head and he said, no, but that's how he is. Well, you just admitted that your quarterback, who's 18 years old, is more critical of his game than you were as the head coach. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't even, you were like, he's just hard on himself. That's your job. That's your job to find all the things he did wrong in that game. He had a great statistical game. I think it was his first game, right? 200 and some yards, a touchdown, pretty good completion percentage, no interceptions, not bad for a first game. But the 18-year-old was more critical of his game than you were as a coach. So you just high-fived him and said, hey, good game, bro. I'm out of here. You know what I mean?
Not just a high five. I mean, they had that elaborate pregame.
Yeah,
they worked on that. They worked on that.
Yeah, they worked on that instead of, I don't know, reading a defense. I don't know.
Spent a lot of time on that one.
Got a dope-ass handshake, but can't see a cover two.
Chico Golf from the YouTube page, I hope I got that right, says Bryce Underwood already has a personal quarterback coach. He still didn't develop. I know he's got a quarterback coach that he works with, and I've seen this pop up. Hell, Jared, I saw somebody the other day say Bryce Underwood's making millions of dollars. He should have gone out and purchased and bought his own quarterback's coach. Like, why didn't he do that? Guys, when you're the quarterback at the University of Michigan, if you're asking these kids, an 18-year-old kid, to spend his money and go out and get his own quarterback's coach because the University of Michigan is failing in that department, I just think that's, again, another unreasonable ask for a young kid who committed to a program that's supposed to be tasked with developing him. And so I'm not saying you take all of it off of Bryce Underwood, right? There has to be a commitment from his side. I think there is a commitment from his side to get better. But put yourself in that position when you're 18 years old. Jared, I know what I was like when I was 18. I can only imagine what you were like when you were 18. When you're that age, no matter how mature you are for your age, you need guys around you to develop you. You need guidance around you. You need good coaching around you. Like, that's how you get to the next level. Even the most elite guys, when they make that jump from high school to college football, they don't take that next step unless they've got really good coaching around them that can get them there. And unfortunately, Bryce Underwood didn't have that. And so that's all I'm saying, is that we know that coaching wasn't where it needed to be. I'm not ready to move on from number 19 yet. I think you got to give Kyle Whittingham and his staff the opportunity to work with him and see what happens in year 2 as a sophomore. I would expect that there's going to be a big leap, but of course that's going to take a commitment and, probably quite a bit of humbling on Bryce Underwood's part, that, like, yeah, elite 5-star, $12 million guy. Like, everybody was talking about me, this, and this. I didn't really look all that good as a true freshman. Like, I got to put in the work. I got to develop if I want to bring a championship to this program.
So what everybody's talking about, this quarterback coach is I think I've met this guy before. Donovan Dooley. Yeah. And so he was ranked the 9th best quarterback coach in the country at the high school level. Big part of that was Bryce Underwood came out as the #1 recruit in the nation. So that's going to bump him up. Right. Sure. But here's the other studs that he's quarterback coached: Brandon Peters, Christian Villo from Penn State, not playing, and Drew Viato from University of Minnesota. So, I mean, some elite talent that he's been in charge of, but I'm just saying, like, you got the #1 guy in the country, you're going to bump up. I don't know this guy personally, but I think that if you got a generational guy like this, and it said, the article said Coach Witt is actually consulting with this guy because he's been coaching Bryce for so long. But yeah, I mean, dude.
I mean, I hate to keep making the Dante Moore comparison, but I see somebody bringing it up in the comments.
Well, I think they're saying that he coached Dante Moore too, but I don't see that.
Oh, he might have. Yeah, but I mean,
God, I would have hoped they would have added Dante Moore on there.
But there's a comparison to be made there, right? Dante Moore as a true freshman, his numbers were absolute trash. His numbers were actually worse than Bryce Underwood as a true freshman at UCLA. Yeah. And then what does Dante Moore? He transfers from UCLA. He goes out to Oregon. He sits for a year, develops, gets good coaching around him. And now he's a starting quarterback at Oregon. He's one win away from playing for a national championship. And he's a legit D1 Power 4 quarterback now, one of the top quarterbacks in the sport. And so, that is a ton of pressure to put on a young guy. It's one of the biggest risks to playing a true freshman is because when there's so much hype around it, you just think that it's got to be automatic. The he's talented. He can do this. He's generational. He's that. Even for those guys, it's a massive leap to compete at the next level. It's going to take you at least a year to get that figured out. The speed of the game is different. The power on the defensive side, the athletes that you're facing, the corners that you're facing, having to read a new offense, like all of that stuff. And now he's got to go learn another offense under Kyle Whittingham's staff. I think it's a lot to put on a young kid, but for better or worse, he is the guy. And so talking about Bryce Underwood, talking about Kyle Whittingham, there is a bit of a question as to how Kyle Whittingham should handle Bryce Underwood. And I've mentioned this to you before, and I think about it like when you're coming into a situation and you're Kyle Whittingham and you've already got a quarterback on the roster who's a $12 million quarterback, kind of like the guy that has to be your starter. I wonder how you navigate that as Kyle Whittingham. Is there a part of you that thinks like, okay, I know he's the guy here, but I also want to bring in a guy that can legitimately push him and potentially compete for that starting position? Do you think that that's the best thing to do for the quarterback room, is for Kyle Whittingham to go out and bring in a guy that could presumably push him to the point where maybe Bryce Underwood is going to be the starter?
Just say his name.
There's a guy named Devin Dampier out there that looked pretty damn good for Utah. I'm just saying.
You look around that so long.
You look pretty good for Utah. I'm not saying that he needs to be the guy or he should be the guy, but all I'm saying is, would it not benefit Bryce Underwood to bring a guy in who can legit? I'm not talking Mikey Keene or Davis Warren. That's what I'm saying. Like, bring in a guy that can like really push him to where Bryce Underwood walks into that building every day, in spring ball and fall camp and says, if I'm not on top of my shit, I might lose this job. Like, I don't see any downside to that at all, other than in today's era, can your ego take it?
Well, here's the thing though, too. The one thing I have never heard about Bryce Underwood is that he doesn't work. Like, everybody has said at every level that this kid works, right? Like, even when Sharon Moore was doing whatever he was doing, not in the facility, and Bryce was there, right? They said the kid works. First in, last out, you know what I mean? Working on his craft constantly. So I'm hoping, and again, I don't think he had a horrible year for all the reasons that you said, that difference between going from Belleville High School, where you're lucky if you run into a D2 guy on the defense you're playing against, maybe one D1 guy, and coming to Michigan is a big leap. But I think, I mean, I think that the coaching just wasn't there, right? The kid's putting in work, but there's nobody there giving him the right guidance. So if anything, he could have been reinforcing, issues with his, because I know in the game, and I think I texted you, I'm not sure, but he wasn't getting set at all. If he was rolling out, he wouldn't stop, plant, throw. He was roll, throw on the roll, sidearm, and that shit that we saw Arch Manning doing. And remember, we talked about Arch Manning doing in game 1 against Ohio State. He kept, and it looked awful. Angle. Right. Yeah. And all the announcers are saying that these uber talented kids, when they get uncomfortable, they think, oh, my arm's good enough, I can throw it from whatever. No, you got to stick to the basics, right? Tom Brady had a base. Broke up there. But anyway, he was talking about the base, having to have that base. If you don't have your back foot planted, you can't drive the ball. And then when Bryce threw those underthrows, what they call them Bryce underthrow, he didn't have that back foot planted. If you look every time, he's just winging it, man. And then that's that raw talent that's got to get like coached out of him. Hey, buddy, got a great arm. If you plant your leg, you got a better arm. So it's like backyard football. It's like you're just out running around and you're just playing. But do that in the Big Ten, baby. Right? There's not a lot of fundamentals. There's like mechanically, it just looks off. And so it looks cool when he pulls it off, right? Yeah, it looks great. And there was a ball that he threw to Marlon Klein in the end zone into double coverage where he put it where only Marlon Klein could get it. It was a beautiful ball. Klein couldn't pull it in, but you see instances of that even against
Northwestern, right? When they were playing at Wrigley, and Andrew Marsh had that explosive game. Like Bryce Underwood was the guy putting the ball out there.
Yep.
So you can see that he's got that in him, but the inconsistency, the mechanics, throwing off your back foot or whipping your leg or the sidearm thing or whatever it is, like sometimes that I think is helpful. Yeah. I'm the furthest thing away from a quarterback's coach, but I got to believe like mechanics, it's fundamental to make sure that your mechanics are on point when you're playing at this level. And right now it looks like he's living week to week on raw talent. And sometimes you see really great things that come out of that. And a lot of times you see things that are like, Jesus, like that has to get a lot better. And I think that's where you're at with Bryce Underwood after year one. Keith White from the Facebook page says, bro, Dampier is not coming. I didn't say he was, but I will say this. Like people said the same thing about Bryce Underwood for a long time before he came. Don't rule anything out in today's era of college football. Right. And I'm not saying that it has to be a Dampier. All I'm saying is, would it not be to Bryce Underwood's benefit to bring in somebody who can legitimately push him for that starting job rather than bringing in some low-level guy who has no shot at ever being the starting quarterback at the University of Michigan? And I think if you're Kyle Whittingham, that's probably something you got to ask yourself, because if you put all your chips in on Bryce Underwood and you believe that much in him, then great. But I just feel like it's a much safer place to be if you bring in another guy. Now you've got two legitimate guys who are going to battle it out and let the better man win. I don't see any downside other than in today's era of college football, sometimes that can cost you a quarterback. And it's really hard to build a deep room when there's a lot of ego in it and people thinking, well, I'm the starter, I should be playing somewhere. They're going to go and find somewhere who's going to make them the starter. Let me see here. Whoever this is. I mean, look, I get it.
Free Rip Star. Oh, bro, he asked us if we borrowed our gear. I don't think we can't read. He's an awesome fan.
Everything in caps lock all the time.
Started drinking early or something. I don't know.
Brother.
Put it down, buddy. Put it down.
Let's see here. I don't know if we have any questions, comments.
No, there's a lot of comments.
A lot of comments coming in. I just saw somebody mention Tate Forcier. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm not going to read that. Thoughts on the coaching staff? I mean, Kyle Whittingham is obviously doing a ton of work. He said it on the broadcast during the Texas game that he expected to have 90% of his coaching staff filled by this weekend. At this rate, it seems like it's probably going to be closer to 100%. I mean, there's announcements coming out, it seems like all day. Thoughts on the staff that he's assembling? It looks like, to my knowledge, unless something has happened since we've been on the podcast, the two guys that he's going to retain from Michigan's coaching staff are Lou Esposito and Tony Alford, the running backs coach. So the defensive line coach and the running backs coach he's keeping. Everybody else is either from Utah or you got one guy from BYU. I think there's like a wide receiver coach that they brought in, two of them, one of which is from Penn State. And I believe he spent some time at Virginia. But overall, to me, it looks like Whittingham is bringing in a solid collection of guys who are just really good coaches. And I think that's exactly what's needed in Ann Arbor. Do any of those guys stand out to you? Anything that really surprised you about it?
I think it was key that he kept the two best recruiting guys on the team, right? He kept Alford and Esposito. Esposito was a great recruiter for that defensive line. So I think that was good. I think I like the coordinator hires, both of them. They're younger guys. They seem excited about the game, and it looks like they've had great success, and hopefully some guys come with them. I think our defense needs a lot of help through the portal, and there's some studs that have entered the portal that have connections with these guys, and there's some really good recruits out there that have connections with these guys too. Like at least 3 top 100 recruits this year that had some kind of connection to Utah or BYU. So that's interesting, but. Yeah, I think we don't know, right? We got to see what's going to happen. I don't hate any of the hires so far, and the next part we got to look at is like, and I hate to get this far ahead, but I mean, Whittingham's going to be here 5, maybe 6 years if he's successful. Has he got guys that is coming with him that can replace? You got to look at that. I like the offensive coordinator though, Beck. I like him.
Yeah, he's had some success. And I mean, when you look at the numbers at Utah and what they were able to do offensively, I mean, you can always find holes and you can always find things to not like about certain guys. But I think that,
O-line coach too.
Yeah, the O-line coach by all means is elite. I think he's a former head coach at Troy High School.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking. Yeah, they're talking. He's like the best offensive line coach in the country, perhaps. Like he's got 2 guys that might go first round this year. Like, and think about the talent disparity between Utah and Michigan in terms of recruiting, right? Like he's getting 3-star guys, maybe 4-star guys, and turn them into first round picks. Like Michigan can go out and get 5-star linemen with that good coaching. I mean, God.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think overall, I mean, the staff, the staff looks solid. Like I'm not necessarily, keeping Tony Alford, I think is huge. Keeping Lou Esposito was good in terms of like keeping some of the guys who are in the mix and on the recruiting trail. I think that was critically important. And then some of the new guys that he brought in, like I'm not, to sit here and say like I'm a Jay Hill expert. I've been following this guy's career. I haven't. I looked up his numbers at BYU. Looks like he's got a pretty solid track record. It looks like it's going to be an improvement over Wink Martindale, but we'll see. I mean, that's ultimately how Kyle Whittingham is going to be judged, by what happens on fall Saturdays. But when you look at the roster that he's assembling, at least I got to get this guy out of here. This guy's driving me insane here.
Yeah, I was waiting.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You're delusional.
Lord. Okay. Let's get back on track here. The coaching staff itself, to me, looks solid. And I'm excited to see what it looks like on the field, because I just think so much of the issues that we saw from Michigan throughout the season were indicative of a team that was poorly coached. And I think that, again, there were some guys in their individual roles who were doing well. But, like, did you hear that leading up to the bowl game, like, they had to bring in John Jansen? John Jansen, who does, like, the play-by-play on the radio, former Michigan offensive lineman. They had to bring him in to help with the offensive line coaching during bowl game prep because they were just short on the staff and they needed some help. I just think, wait, did I ban the wrong person here?
No, he's back. He's got a different name.
Holy shit.
This dude's awesome. He built a burner in 2 seconds.
I appreciate
your MSU poverty. What does that mean?
Wheels are coming off here. What the hell was I talking?
I should have never told them that you had a key, and now they think.
Good Lord. They think they can just come in here and they can act the fool. But no, you had to get John Jansen to bring in and to bring him in and help with the coaching or help with the offensive line. It just feels scary. There were systems that were supposed to be in place that weren't in place under Sharon Moore. And I think overall, the more that we learn about what was going on in that building, again, I mean, you watch the way that they perform, undisciplined team, inconsistent team, and then you get into the game against Texas, and it's like they look good for a little while, they play hard, and then the wheels come off and everything falls apart. And so to me, it's coaching. If there's one thing that I can see from what Kyle Whittingham is assembling, is that these guys have coached a lot of football for the most part. They've been doing it at a high level for a real long time. They've had a lot of success in their individual roles. And I think bringing all of that to Michigan, I know there were some people that are like, there's too many Utah people. You got to get people from different parts of the country. I understand that, but also there's something to having continuity, having guys that you have a relationship with that understand your system, guys that you can work with, and that you've got a history with. I mean, I think that that's critical for success. And it seems like when you listen to what they're saying, all their statements, there's a lot of talk about doing things the right way, doing things with integrity, raising men the right way. They're saying all the right things. So we'll see. We'll see how it all, Jesus Christ, is this person
This guy's
back?
awesome, dude. This guy is awesome.
For anybody who listens to this,
how many burner accounts does he got?
There's somebody in the comments here who most of what they're saying is in cap locks, and then I remove them, and like 2 seconds later, they're back here with another username.
We're on the third burner account, folks. This is the third one. Ripstar, I'm actually getting kind of impressed. If he comes back with a fourth, we got to let him stay. If he comes back with a fourth, we got to let him stay. 4 burner accounts staying out with us. You know what I think is crazy, though, because I got a little bit of ADD. We have not even mentioned this. That's not diagnosed. It's, whatever. We haven't even mentioned.
You are a doctor, so technically it is formally
diagnosed. I have ADD. So we're not even discussing a guy who was a potential Heisman candidate, hasn't declared for the draft, nothing. Justice Haynes. Like, we're not even. This team has talent moving forward, right? Like, we're not even. We haven't even had to discuss that. Like,
I think mentally, I've already made peace that he's not coming back. That's where I'm at. So that if he does come back, I think it's going to be great.
I think they're going to put a bag on him, man. I really do.
They should
put a bag on him, and I think if Bryce stays, he might stay.
They should. Yeah, I mean, if you suffer some losses, but you're able to return Justice Haynes, keep Jordan Marshall, keep Bryce Underwood, keep Andrew Marsh, keep most, if not all, of your offensive line, and then bring some guys over from Utah defensively in the secondary.
Look back healthy on the line. Haywood probably get some more reps.
Yeah, then that to me would be a massive win. And I think probably if you're Kyle Whittingham, I mean, he's not stupid. He's been doing this for a long time. That's probably your top priority as well, as making sure that you keep. Okay, what do we got going on? Are you seeing this question here?
Put it up there.
Listen, If you want me to answer that, you're gonna have to pay. That's like a $20.
That's not a freebie, bro.
Come back with cash and we'll answer whatever it is.
You know who it is? It's Ripstar. Right now, he's sold your boy $14.91. This guy is awesome.
Do you see why I avoid YouTube? You see why I avoid it? It's chaos over there. It's chaos over there. Let me see if I can
look at the fans are like, what the fuck? Look,
let me see if I can get this some oh my God. Look, man.
He's bad.
I gotta give you your props. I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know how you're making it work.
Yeah. Hey, kudos.
Jesus
We're losing control of this one.
We are. Hold on. Let me just do some work here. Let me do some work here. I want to go to some questions and some comments here. Okay, questions and comments. Let me go back through and see if I can find anything not in caps lock that maybe we didn't cover here. Terry Sams from the Facebook page says, bring in Tom Brady to help with Bryce Underwood. Yeah, I don't know that's, every time that there's a coaching thing or anytime, it's like the secondary needs some help. We got to get Charles Woodson. The quarterbacks need help. We got to get Tom Brady, the wide receivers. Bring in Desmond Howard. Listen, I'm not saying it would ever be a bad thing for Bryce Underwood to work with Tom Brady. I just think we got to get it out of our heads that these guys have any interest in coming in some sort of capacity to like work with the football team. To me, it always feels very unrealistic, and I get why you do it. Like these guys were very successful, great at what they do. But I think, Kyle Whittingham has brought in a quarterback's coach that he has worked with in, I think for a number of years now.
With a solid last name for quarterbacks, right? Detmer.
Hoy Detmer, right?
Yeah,
I think his dad or his uncle played in the NFL.
Both of them did, right?
Both of them.
So two, it was Ty and there was another Detmer. There was two of them that played. But yeah, I mean, they weren't Hall of Famers, but I mean,
not world beaters, but like also Coy Detmer's got like a handlebar mustache. And so that's got to count for something, right?
That's points right there. And I don't care how good you are. If you make it to the NFL, even as a backup quarterback, then you have mastered the craft of being a quarterback, right? Like you don't just make it even as a backup and suck. So,
man, some of these questions really threw me off that were coming in here. Fast and Furious from the YouTube page. I'm going to have to get myself back into football mode here. I'm going to go through some of these questions.
Got basketball coming up in half an hour too, so
we do got basketball in half an hour.
Don't sleep on these guys. Is this their first ranked team?
It might be. And they're like a 20-point favorite?
USC's 24th, and they're a 20-point favorite?
Yeah, right. Do you see that? It's insane. Mentally, I'm almost getting to basketball season. It's just there's so much going on with football that I can only focus on one thing at a time. Seeing a lot of comments, not seeing a lot of questions, but I want to make sure I don't necessarily miss anything since we got a little bit of time here. Jared, anything you think we didn't cover on the live?
No, I think we did all the stuff we wanted to talk about. The big deal now is like just like on your graphic, right? We wait for the transfer portal, right? We're losing guys, but we got to see what this coaching staff can do. Can they get some people involved? And I want to touch on the Tom Brady and the Charles Woodson, the Desmond Howard thing. That while we all know, well, some of us do, that they're not ever going to come coach here, having those guys calling recruits and putting the influence that does help. I wrote an article about Bryce Underwood, having a phone conversation with Tom Brady and how like that just changed everything for him. Like that's amazing. So Michigan does have, they got Aiden Hutchinson. Like we've got some studs in some positions that can influence the program. And the great thing about Michigan to me is that, when the guys move on, they still support the program. I mean, you're talking 20, 30 years ago, these guys were playing. They're still here supporting the program, and they're still, doing what they can to help. And that's an X factor. When a Tom Brady calls a top tier recruit and says, "Hey, you think about Michigan ever?" That matters. That moves a needle.
Yeah.
There's Howard Hutchinson. Like these are big names.
Huge names, and they're always around the program. I mean, Charles Woodson is always around. Tom Brady was walking around for the Ohio State game. I was in the tunnel. Tom Brady was in the tunnel, and as Bryce Underwood was coming down, like Tom Brady,
Derek Jeter even talks about it.
Yeah, Derek Jeter's around. Aiden Hutchinson is around. Like these guys are around the program, and there's no doubt that Bryce Underwood has Tom Brady in his phone. And I'd be surprised if maybe there wasn't a conversation that already took place following the game between Tom Brady. And although Tom Brady seems like he's a little bit busy, he's got his hands full these days from what I could see online for all the right reasons. He's a busy guy these days. Tony Petrosky says rumors are swirling that Chris is hitting the photography portal. No, I don't think I'm hitting the portal. But the thing is, I don't know that I'm going to shoot next year. It's something I really got to think about. I mean, I enjoy doing it, but also I've talked about this before, man. It's so hard to like actually just sit back and enjoy the game and watch it and take it in. The photography thing is cool. I had the opportunity to do it, and I had honestly the opportunity to do it at like one of the greatest times to be able to do it. But there's something. Yeah, I did. I mean, from the time I got in the industry, it's like, let me come in, let me pick up a camera, and then all of a sudden Michigan goes on this historical run and wins a national championship, and here I am, some dink on the sideline, like taking pictures of it all. It was just
taking pictures of your hat on the grass and shit.
Yeah, it couldn't have worked out better than what it did. But I do miss watching the games and taking it in, and being able to watch the games with family and have those experiences too. So that's something I'm going to have to think about going into next year. But, there's a part of me that really loves, I mean, Tony, you get it. You're a photographer. You understand the thrill of chasing one of those incredible shots and what that feels like. Like there's a high that comes along with that. Ramon Hunt or Raymond Hunt from the Facebook page says, you all are acting like Belleville had a bunch of bums on the roster. They have plenty of players playing D1 ball and a few in the NFL. He had better coaching at that little ass school than at the big house. No, I'm not. Listen, I'm not acting. I'm not acting like Belleville is a bunch of bums on the roster. That's not what I'm saying. But Raymond or Ramon or however you say it, I apologize. Ramon, you have to understand that high school football at Belleville is not D1 football at the University of Michigan. It just isn't. The level of competition that you're facing from week to week isn't even in the same universe. And so, yeah, it is a massive jump. All credit to Belleville. I'm sure they got a phenomenal program down there, but it's not D1 college ball.
Yeah, and we weren't talking about Belleville anyways. We were talking about the defenses that he was facing.
That's true. I was more so shitting on Pioneer and Howell.
Correct, exactly. Because Howell had the Bobby Kanka or whatever he came to Michigan. He was their only D1 talent. Yeah. He was their only D1 level guy. So that's what we were saying. Belleville had Ramon's correct. Belleville had quite a few. Jeremiah Beasley, right? Elijah Dotson, right?
Yeah, not shitting on Belleville. It's just the acknowledgement that it's different, man. And you can rack up a lot of stats and a lot of wins on raw talent, even at Belleville. You can't do that at the D1 level at a Power 4 school. You just can't. Like that's fundamentals, that's coaching, that's mechanics. That's where all of that comes into play.
See that one the fan asked if you missed her comment or something.
Where is it at? What time did it come in?
6:30. It was a paid one. I think Sunny Days.
It was a paid. Oh, hold on. We got a few.
Am I crazy or did you not answer my other super chat?
We got a few. Okay. I see it here. Sunny Days 885. Any word on Gennaro Guilford? I don't have any word on that, Jared. Anything that you have there? I've got to be honest.
I don't.
If I'm being totally honest, that name, I have no idea who that is. So you're going to have to look that up. You're going to have to connect the dots for me.
Oh, so there's two. There's the coach, and then there's the cornerback. So I think it depends if they're talking about the cornerback or the coach.
Well, who's the coach?
Looks like it's a BYU coach, corners, and then his son must be plays with him. Doesn't play with him yet. He's a 27 kid, but the cornerback must be the cornerback coach at BYU. Yep, the defensive passing game and cornerback coach, and he's got a decent kid that's coming up in 2027. I haven't heard anything on this name. So, I mean, obviously both of us were like, who the hell is this? So I haven't heard this name mentioned at all, to be honest. Have you?
No, but if anything, should start reading up on the Utah staff and the BYU staff, because it seems like that's where a lot of these guys are going to be coming from. But yeah, no, I haven't heard anything about that. But obviously, Kyle Whittingham is going to be making a lot of moves in the coming days, and you're going to see this staff come together. Probably early next week is when he's going to be finished. Now you're going to see some analyst positions and things like that get filled probably in the longer term, but here in the near term, it seems like he's pretty damn close to having his staff solidified. So we'll have to see. That's certainly a name to watch, and I'm sorry that I missed that comment there. I was getting bombarded with inappropriate comments from
still flowing a little bit here. I'm gonna have to go read my Bible after this. This is crazy.
Oh my goodness.
They're commenting right here too on 633. So Sunny Days, whoever Sunny Days is, might be Guilford's agent.
Could be.
Advocate for him.
And we appreciate the donation here. Hold on, I think something else came in. Let me check.
Yeah, it was another one. Sunny Days again.
Okay, yeah, there we go. The coach will be the best DB coach we've had. Yeah, look, it can only get better. That's how I feel a lot about a lot of these coaching moves. Is I feel like there's only going to be an improvement. It can only get better, and that's what I was saying. Is that it feels like he's bringing in guys who know how to coach the game and have been doing it for a long time. And I think the biggest part is like there's no controversy with any of these guys that are coming in. And if you look at what some of the former players are saying, or if you even look at what the Utah fan base is saying, they're all like upset by these losses. It doesn't really seem like they're happy to see these guys go. And I think that really just speaks to the caliber and the quality of guy that Kyle Whittingham is bringing in. Yeah. Ad Wellman from the YouTube page says, bring in Devin Gardner to, I guess, presumably to work with Bryce Underwood. Jared, this is something that you and I talked about before. I just don't, again, that's another name where it's like, yes, can he work with quarterbacks? Sure, absolutely. But is Devin Gardner a guy that you bring into the program at this point? I don't think so. He's a great analyst. He's very, very opinionated. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I just think that he has his view on how certain things should be done. And I just think that when you bring a guy like that in, it could sometimes clash if you're a head coach or you're a quarterback's coach and you've got a guy like Devin Gardner in there and he thinks certain things should be done a certain way. So I don't know that would necessarily work. We got another paid one that came in here from Jester's Jinx. I didn't read this, so I'm going to throw it up, and I'm hoping it's appropriate.
Off the portal. It makes sense. Yep, it's good.
They say, are we really that sad about any of these transfers? Most of these dudes won't fit the scheme that is coming in. Zeke Berry, Elijah Dotson, or have underperformed like Samaj Morgan, or are in rooms that are full. Jasper Parker. Yeah, Jesters, I think that's exactly what we were talking about earlier when we were looking at that list. I can pull it back up, but that's exactly where we're at. When you go through this list and you look at the names that are on there, there isn't really anybody to be too upset about. There isn't anybody that I view on that list as being irreplaceable. Cole Sullivan is the one guy that I think you got to do whatever you can do to hold on to him. But yeah, even a guy like Zeke Berry, Jaden Mangham, obviously Davis Warren, Jaden Davis, Samaj Morgan, Frederick Moore, Jasper Parker, Elijah Dotson, Connor Jones, and on and on and on. All of these guys are replaceable through the transfer portal. And I think that, it's again, it can be overwhelming when you see name after name start to hit the portal. But when you really take a look at this list, there's only one guy on there that we should be a little bit concerned about and that we hope they bring back. So appreciate the donation there, Jester's Jinx from the YouTube page. Let's see. Another one from Sunny Days 885 says Guilford's been Will Hill since day one, game changer. Okay, yeah. Hey, I'm all in. Jared, you said this might be their agent. I don't know.
Doing a good job.
I'm sold. I hope they bring him in. That's where I'm at on this. I hope they
support it. We support it. You've bought our support.
You have bought.
That was a good one with Ron Thomas at 636. One that I was concerned about was not concerned. I guess Cusdall to the portal.
Is he in the portal?
I think he's got to, right? Don't you think he's got to go? He's RB3 at best, and I think he could start.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem because he showed a little something there down the stretch, and I like his quickness. I like how quickly he hits the hole. I think he's a powerful running back, and he was buried on the depth chart. And if not for the injury to Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall, we probably don't see Bryson Cusdall at all. Again, selfishly, I would love to keep him in the mix. I think a lot of this really depends on is Justice Haynes coming back next year. If Justice Haynes doesn't come back, then to me, the 1-2 punch of Jordan Marshall and Bryson Cusdall sprinkled in with a little bit of Savion Hyder, I think that's a phenomenal running back room. Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of this is going to depend on whether or not Justice Haynes is going to return. I must have missed. I didn't see the comment, but
do you like having the portal right now, or would you rather have it in spring? And do you think it's more advantageous for the players to have it now or to have it in the spring? Because I think if you have it in the spring, now Cusdall gets to go out and do a spring, do spring practice and see, okay, Hyder is going to be RB2. I'm going to hop in the portal. Right now, he doesn't know what Savion Hyder looks like on the field. I think it's just the portal timing is just so weird in the winter. I just don't.
Well, not only that, but you still have teams that are playing. You still have teams
it's
in
not
the
good for anybody. I don't feel like.
Right. Especially if you're a playoff team, it's difficult.
Yeah, I think it's fair for a kid to be able to go into spring practice, try, compete, and say, you know what? Here's the deal. I'm going to be third string on this team, and so no, I need to go. Now, you know what I mean? I think they should move the portal.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw, and I don't remember his name or his position, but a guy from Miami just entered the transfer portal, and it's like, dude, you're in the Final Four, like you're playing for a national championship, and you're entering the portal. Like, I don't know how it works
for him, right? He must have looked even his agent, and like, hey, we're gonna be wide receiver 4 next year. Like, we got to go, and the portal's open now. It's now I do believe it's also said that the portal stays open for 5 days after the completion of your season if you're in the playoff. So if you're in the playoff and it goes past the 2 week, the 16th of January, you get an additional 5 days. But I don't know that that's even fair.
Yeah. Travis Britko from the Facebook page says not a single transfer should be looked at as a bad loss. All those guys want to leave because they won't play or wanted to play for freaky weirdo. Like, damn it. See, I didn't read the full thing before I got into it. But yeah, well, you know, listen, I'm sure there are some guys on there. Think what you want about Sharon Moore. There's some guys on that team that did have a relationship with him and, you know, came in part at least because of the connection that they had with him.
There's some staffers that had a relationship with him too. Just throwing it out there. Facts are facts, my friend. She's probably a better quarterback at this point. She spent more time with him. Oh, do it again. Hit the buzzer again.
All right. Michael Hall from the Facebook page. I didn't read this thing. Again, I'm just going to go through these. I'm hoping that they're appropriate. He says, is there a kicker in the portal we could go after? We've been really blessed with portal kickers the last few seasons. Yeah, I would agree until this last year. You know, it seems to have worked out. And then you had Jake Moody here, who was money. I think that if there's anything that we've learned this last season, it's how critical special teams is. Having a good punter, having a field goal kicker who's consistent. And so I don't think that there's any doubt that Kyle Whittingham understands that special teams is an area that for sure needs to be improved significantly at Michigan. But I'd be lying, Michael Hall, if I sat here and said, I know of this kicker that's out there. I know of this phenomenal punter. I don't know who they are, but I know that they're out there. I know that they're serviceable guys that you can go and bring in. And if you're Kyle Whittingham, you absolutely have to address that. I mean, if we're being realistic, that's got to be, you know, it's not at the top, but it's got to be one of your biggest priorities here during the offseason. Because if you're great on special teams, you always take it for granted. But if you're shitty on special teams, it becomes real obvious real quick how critical it is. And to Jared's point, you start to lose some games that way. I mean, how many times can we look back on Dominic Zavada missing a field goal here and there, or a shitty punt that really flips the field the wrong way, and all of a sudden you're playing behind the 8 ball at that point?
Yep. You got a Mamba forever.
I see that. See, I love to see these rolling in. And I do, you know, I joke a lot on here, but I do appreciate it because, again, we do all this for free. And it's nice that, you know, if you guys want to contribute to what we're doing any way possible. And obviously, if you're throwing a couple dollars our way, we're always going to make sure that we can get to your question. Mamba Forever from the YouTube page says, do you think we will spend the money on wide receivers? I feel like Michigan doesn't like to spend money at this position. I sure hope so. I mean, you
ain't going to get none if you don't.
Right. And this is
line, like,
especially in this offense with the track record of this offense. Now,
to pay kids to come.
Exactly. We're going to have to see, you know, what Kyle Whittingham ultimately does through the air and what that looks like here at the University of Michigan. But I would agree. I think that Michigan, if there's one position offensively, you know, outside of, I guess, prior to JJ McCarthy, when you look at the quarterback position, you could say has been lackluster. You know, at wide receiver, it just feels like Michigan has gone after a certain type of guy, and they've gotten away from that big body, can go high point the ball, snag the ball, make big plays through the air type person. You know, not to take away from anything that Roman Wilson did during that national championship season, because I think he was phenomenal. But Michigan has, for a while, gone after those shorter, kind of quicker, shiftier Roman Wilson, Ronnie Bell, Samaj Morgan was a part of that. Like, and Andrew Marsh is in that. I think Andrew Marsh is the closest thing we've had to like a guy who can be a game changer at the wide receiver position. And I'll say this for sure, if they want to hang on to him, they're going to have to pay him. And so, yeah, my hope, Mamba Forever, is that they will absolutely pony up and pay wide receivers, because that's a big part of getting the most out of Bryce Underwood as well. Is you can do all the things mechanically and you can develop them or whatever, but man, oh man, it sure is easy to look really good when you're throwing to guys like Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. And I don't know that you're ever going to be able to bring those caliber of guys to Ann Arbor, at least until you fundamentally change what you do offensively. But, again, those types of weapons on the perimeter can make a quarterback's day a lot easier. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
Let's see here. As we're getting close, we'll go for a couple more minutes. Take a couple more questions here. I got a couple more minutes.
Nobody believes you.
That's usually not. That's not what he's
not the truth.
Nadim Ahmed from the Facebook page. Hope I got that right. He says, "What would you guys say is a reasonable expectation for the team next year? Top 3 Big Ten finish, Big Ten title, beating Ohio State, playoffs? ? That's a phenomenal question. It's something that Jared and I
right now.
Well, that's the thing.
Line right now.
Listen,
we don't know.
Okay, so we have some unknowns with the roster. We understand that. We get that. But at the end of the day, I think however that changes in the coming days and weeks, shouldn't the expectation still be the same at this program and with this coaching staff? Like, we know they're going to lose some guys.
Yes.
Yeah, we know they're going to lose some guys, but we also know they're going to bring some guys in. We also know that Michigan is a program that has the type of NIL resources that few other programs around the country can match. This is still Michigan. So in that sense, Jared, when you look at his question where it's top 3 finish in the Big Ten, a Big Ten title, which I don't know matters as much these days, but beating Ohio State, making the college football playoff, for you looking at next year, what is a reasonable expectation, even with the unknowns we have with this current roster?
For me, it's make the playoff, right? Like, obviously you always want to beat Ohio State. They're going to be tough again next year. Hopefully we're on par. Again, I'm with you, man. Like the first couple that the Big Ten and the title, I don't even care anymore. I really don't, because get in the playoff. That's the matter, right? All these fans are asking Ohio State fans now, right? Like, hey, so what was better for you? Winning the national championship or beating Michigan? Because you were, you know what I mean? Like, getting in the playoff is what matters now. So I think they can do it. I think they can be a 2-loss team, and make that playoff. They're still Michigan. Depends on, they got a daunting.
I was just going to say,
but we don't know what these other programs are going to look like either. This is the other part that's hard about the portal and stuff, right? Yeah. Like, Penn State's going to look totally different. Indiana's going to look totally different. Ohio State's losing people already. Like, there's crazy people saying that Jeremiah Smith is not happy at Ohio State and wishes he would have been in Miami. And
I was saying, right, looking at Miami.
Yeah, we don't know these days. Like, there could be massive shifts. And like some of these teams that we're looking at the schedule next year, like, man, that's a tough game. They could suck next year. You know what I mean? Or they could be a totally different team. So unfortunately, you can't just look like the days of, oh man, we're playing Florida State. Like, they're going to be good.
That's true.
You don't know anymore. Those days are over. Like, because you're going to run into Indiana and they're going to whip your ass now. Like, there's teams, 2 teams in the playoff right now that probably have.
And 5 years ago, the idea of looking at Indiana on your schedule and being like, holy shit, we got to play that. Like, that wasn't even within the realm of possibility, right?
Yeah, back then you were excited.
I think that's a great point, because we talk about the schedule being daunting. You look at Oklahoma, you look at Oregon, at Ohio State, and you're like, these are big time programs. And it's like,
I don't know what it means.
You think they're going to be good. You think they're going to be elite. You think they're going to be contenders. You assume that just based on track record and level of program and expectation. But Jared, I think that you're right. I mean, you don't really know what these teams are going to be. I just think if you're Michigan and you're Kyle Whittingham, you better make damn sure that you get as many weapons in as you can to compete with anybody. And so that's how I would answer the question. And I'm right there with you, Jared. I think the expectation is college football playoff. Even with the unknowns we have with this roster, Kyle Whittingham is he's criticized for it, but he is a very seasoned, experienced coach at 66 years old. He's putting in a very experienced staff around him. He's got a ton of resources at Michigan. He's got some solid pieces that are going to be back, and he's got the opportunity to do some work in the transfer portal. And so the expectation at this program, regardless of who the head coach is always going to be the college football playoff from here on out. And Jared, I think you're right. Like, yeah, okay, winning the Big Ten is, I guess, okay, but also playing in the conference championship, sometimes if you miss it, that can be to your advantage. And so the idea of like a conference title, that's a whole other discussion, but like, it doesn't mean as much anymore. It really doesn't mean as much anymore. Beating Ohio State, I still think, means a whole hell of a lot, and you want to be able to do that. But to me, not even the bare minimum for this program next year is you got to make the college football playoff. And I think that's going to be the standard from here on out. We got another, I think, paid question that came in. Let me get to that one. I think we got
Terry.
I got a few of these things that came in here. Terry says, Terry 5739 from the YouTube page says, what do you think about the spread offense the coach is going to run? Yeah, I read a little bit about it. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research. I want to go back and just watch some actual tape of Utah's offense and see what it looks like. But again, like with everything else, I'm excited for some change. I'm excited for something new for the Michigan offense, because I think that, man, for so long, this offense just feels like a head scratcher. It just feels like it's stuck in mud. It feels like there's no consistency with what we've seen from the offense. And I get it. During the Harbaugh years, we got so used to ground and pound. We got so used to just this smash philosophy that Sharon Moore tried to carry over into his coaching tenure for all the wrong reasons. But, this idea that, like, you've got to be this ground and pound team, I'm excited to see something a little bit different. And I think that if you can change the way you operate fundamentally as an offense, it doesn't mean you go away from the running attack, but you've got to incorporate the passing game in a way to where from week to week there's consistency there and there's a legitimate threat through the air. And once you do that, I think it's going to open up everything from the offense. So what do I think about it? Surface level, I'm excited about it, but full transparency, I need to go in and I need to watch a little more Utah and just, get a better understanding of what to expect.
I think, Utah ran the ball well too, right? Like they were the second best.
Number 2 in the country this past season.
So they're not just going to come into Michigan, look at that running back room and be like, all right, we're going to start airing it out. They're going to still run the ball. But I mean, their quarterback attempted 300 yard or 300 passes this year, same as Bryce, same. Julian Sane was in the 340, 350 range. So they're very balanced. They're just successful at running because they put so much effort into their offensive line, like Michigan did. You know what I mean? But so I think Bryce is going to get more rollouts. I've watched a little bit of that. Dampier, they like kind of what they were doing early against Texas when they roll Bryce out. He'd have 3 options right there, quick, throw the ball. So I think they're going to move him around a little bit, and they're not going to stop running the ball. But to me, they looked like a very balanced offense, which is kind of what you wanted to see. And if you think about it, if Bryce can increase his completion percentage from 60 to like 65, 67, right, a sophomore, I mean, the kid's going to be throwing for 2,900 yards now. Like that's right. Like you want it. That's a balanced offense, right? And he can still run. And so I think he's going to get more accurate. And I think it's going to be they throw the ball. I mean, they have a receiver that has like 900 yards. I mean, right.
I think you just have to have actual balance. And Michigan for so long has not had legitimate balance in its offense.
They didn't have to have it for a while there.
When Harbaugh, they didn't have to. When you had an NFL caliber offensive line and you had Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins and Donovan Edwards when he was on his team, when you had all of that working, like you didn't really need to have balance. It's the reason why you could run the ball 32 consecutive times against Penn State. They knew exactly what was coming and couldn't stop that. But the reason why those things are so memorable and why that was such an impressive run is because that doesn't come along very often. And I think in order to like succeed from year to year, and then you go out and you make the investment in Bryce Underwood. I mean, it's like bringing in Jeremiah Smith and never throwing him the ball, right? Like you bring these guys in for a reason. And I get that Kyle Whittingham has a certain type of offense he likes to run, but you really got to build your offense around the talent you have. And I'm hoping that he sees what he has in Bryce Underwood. And I think that we're going to get more of what we would expect through the air with Michigan. And I'm not asking for a lot. I'm not asking for 5,000 or 6,000 yards and 35 touch, but look at the numbers at Michigan historically. Like you throw 25 touchdown passes in a season in this program, which is not all that crazy for other ones. That's a single season record at the University of Michigan. And I think that is attainable with the right offensive mindset.
His best was 22.
Right. He was close. He was close. And again, he was in a very run heavy offense. He was able to put up those kind of numbers. We got a number.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Sunny Days 885. Jay Hill's secondary is all Guilford. Google Guilford. Yes, we will Google Guilford.
Listen, I did, literally. He's good.
I'm sold on it. I will do the research as soon as we get off here. Forgive me. There's a lot to just keep up on with coaching staff changes and
Guilford.
Here's what I'll say as the Michigan basketball game is about to start here in a few minutes. This is where I'm at on this, Jared. I get that there's a lot of unknowns, but I am back to a place where I am cautiously optimistic and excited about what's happening in the football program. And one of the reasons I feel that is because, Kyle Whittingham obviously got a lot of heat, I guess, from the critics about his age and making this transition to Michigan. But one of the things he was very clear about is that he looked at this as an opportunity, as a place where he could come win a national championship. And make no mistake that at 66 years old, and for as long as he was at Utah, and you win a conference championship, or you win conference championships, you win coach of the year, yada, yada, yada. The one thing he hasn't been able to do is play in the college football playoff and play for a national championship. He thinks he can do that in Ann Arbor. And there's no question that that is a big thing on his checklist. When he looks at his career, he wants to be able to check that one off, and he wants to be able to do it here in Ann Arbor. And so I don't doubt that everything he's doing right now is in an effort to bring a national championship to Ann Arbor. And that's what makes me excited about what we're happening. So, Jared, there are some benefits to bringing in a guy who's at the end of his career who desperately wants to win a national championship. Sometimes those guys end up delivering. And I think that we got to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. His track record certainly speaks for itself. There's no reason to think that he can't do more with what he has at Michigan with the resources at his disposal. We will get this paid question in last, and then we will we'll get off here so that you guys can go enjoy the Michigan basketball game. It's from our daddy 56 from the YouTube page. He says,
"What is it?
Our daddy, is that right? Our daddy 56 from the YouTube page. My daddy, your daddy,
our daddy."
If Underwood had the season Devin Dampier had, we'd be in the second round of the playoffs. Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair. I mean, you look at
accurate.
You look at a 9-3 football team that's one win away from the college football playoff, and then you go back and you look at Oklahoma and you look at USC, and you're like, okay, even against Ohio State, like what was the biggest difference there? The biggest difference to me was you didn't have an offense that could complement your defense. You didn't have true balance. You didn't have a difference maker at quarterback. That isn't to say that Bryce Underwood can't be that, but in those situations where a difference maker in that position would have made a huge difference, Michigan just simply didn't have it. So there's no question that 100%, if you take a guy like that with that type of production, Michigan is probably in the college football playoff. And then you can make a debate about how far they could go.
I don't know if that's true, though. I really don't. Their offensive line was so good. I don't think it was just him. Their offensive line was historically. I mean, they got 2 first-round NFL draft picks coming off that line.
That's true. That's true.
Dampier behind our line, he might have Bryce Underwood numbers. You put
maybe or his ability to actually run the ball and operate as a true dual threat may have helped things. That's the thing. Like, we can play the what if game all day long. I certainly don't think that it would have hurt to have a more experienced guy who's a true dual threat running the quarterback position this past season. But here's the benefit. You got Bryce Underwood, who did it as a true freshman, who's now got 13 games under his belt at the University of Michigan, who, if the coaching staff does what it's supposed to do, will come back as a true sophomore with a ton of experience, and that'll put this Michigan offense in such a great place to succeed. So,
listen, all I've learned if we hire Guilford, we're going to be fine, dude.
We got to get Guilford.
Can leave. Jordan Marshall can hit the portal. Savion Hyder can leave. If we get Guilford in as a defensive back coach, hear me out. National champion.
There's a part of me that just wants to keep running the live so that we could just, we can
disagree every 5 minutes.
I'm Guilford here. I really appreciate it. But I do appreciate everybody who opted in the comments here. We had a strong audience, man. Well over 500 people watching the live show consistently for the entire hour. And so much appreciated. You guys were super active in the comments. We're getting back now through the holiday season. We're going to be back, I think, on a normal schedule here next week. Jared, you and I will talk about it. I don't know if you have any travel going on, but once we get off the live here, we'll talk about it. But we will be back next week to talk about Kyle Whittingham's staff, more transfer portal news, who Michigan's bringing in. Hopefully at that point, we're going to be talking about some guys that are actually coming into the program and not talking about all these departures. But I do appreciate all the activity, all the questions. CJ says, where is it? The sunny days. Yeah. You guys have some pull with you. We do. Anybody who's followed this platform for long enough knows that we have some pull. By the way, Jared, the month of December, 36 million views. 36 million views on the Winged Helmet. I think we are at like 110,400 followers right now, which is pretty much the big house at capacity. And so, yeah, you guys are the true rock stars. You guys are the reason that we're able to do this and keep pushing, doing this professionally, independently which is pretty cool to be able to do that. So I am grateful for all the participation, grateful for everybody who's here. We will be back next week. We'll talk about whatever's going on with the Michigan football program. We got Michigan basketball tonight. There's going to be a lot to discuss by the time we hop on next. And hopefully we'll have some guys that are reaffirming their commitment to the Michigan football program. So, Jared, I appreciate you. Everybody in the comments, I appreciate you. We will see you next week.